So here we are in front of the S&W cafeteria, and it was a very important location to the Jewish community. At lunchtime, Jewish business people would gather here. On Thursday nights, it was Maids' Night Out, and families would come. They would show movies upstairs for the kids so the parents could socialize downstairs. But it was also a time of anti-Semitism. This was the 30s, and Hadassah and B'nai B'rith and other Jewish organizations would meet upstairs at the S&W, but they would have to post a guard in front of the door to make sure that everybody was safe. At the same time, Frank Silverman came along and he said he wanted a place where his son could socialize with other Jewish youth. And so he donated some money. And this is how the JCC was born. It was the coming together of comfort and family and familiarity that brought the Jewish community together, and every person in the Jewish community donated money so that they could have a JCC.
Yeah, it was a big white frame building, and I remember you would walk up two sets of concrete steps from Charlotte Street, and then you would walk up maybe 4 or 5 steps to this very large veranda-like porch, which is typically Southern. And over as you walked up these steps, it's all wooden. Surprised the place didn't burn down. They had the sign of a Jewish community center, and then you would walk into this hallway, and to the left was kind of a meeting area, and down below, which is actually the current level, was the social hall.
I know later on, around wartime, I believe that it was around wartime, my father gave or the family gave the auditorium. And I know when the building was first bought, that my grandfather gave a library to it. So we've been involved as a family for many years.
We did, we used to go on Saturday night. They used to have dances, and they had slot machines. We'd play the slot machines. But mainly it was bringing the soldiers up during the war. You know, we'd bring a busload of soldiers every Saturday, and they'd have a dance. And the girls, we had girls, which they enjoyed, having a dance. And then people would take them home and spend the night. People would come and pick them up and take them home and spend the night, take them home for the night, different locals. And then they'd bring them back, give them breakfast, then bring them back the next day, and they'd take the bus and go back to Camp Croft.
And then that's when I got involved, and with the AZA and the BBYO, and our actually meeting place was the Jewish Community Center. But when I first moved here, one of the first things I did was go over there. They had a little convention there, a little regional convention. And I remember going over there with my cousin, Max Crone, and Jerry Sternberg and Vincent Schlossman were there shooting pool. They looked like 2 New York hustlers to me, a little old country boy from Morgan.
About that.
When I was growing up, I guess in the ages that you would go to Sunday school, first through the, maybe until confirmation or bar mitzvah, whichever one it was, the 2 Sunday schools in Asheville were combined due to World War II, and they were held at the JCC. Both the Orthodox and the Reform rabbis were there, and the teachers were both from both congregations, and that was the extent of our Sunday school.
Of course, the JCC was the place to go for social activities. They got to a point, New Year's Eve was always a big dinner dance. So when a dinner dance is a big dance, and everybody went.
But I do remember that was a hangout for most of the Jewish community. My parents and many of their contemporaries did spend a lot of time at the center and in their homes. They didn't have any other place to go if they didn't go to the center or entertain in their homes. So the center was well used by the community. There's no question about it.
But it was in the kitchen of the JCC that a lot of friendships were formed and camaraderie ran on. So we all worked together, the whole community did, for everything.
The organizations that met at the JCC, Hadassah, the National Council of Jewish Women, B'nai B'rith Men, the Anti-Defamation League. It goes on. And of course, AZA and BBG. It was the real hub of this Jewish community for many, many years and still is.
And that was where we had all of our meetings, and it had that social hall had a stage, so there were lots of the BBG girls were always doing plays there, and there were statewide and regional BBYO conventions, so presentations for that and plays would happen there, and our parents had all kinds of activities that utilized that area.
And Asheville was wonderful. We loved the Jewish community. It was very close. The Jewish Community Center at that time was the focal point of social life in Asheville.
And in that auditorium was our entire social life. That was indoors. The outdoors was always by the pool. But the indoors, we had so many parties there. Wonderful parties. And everything always happened at the J. We never had things in different arenas. We could glamorize ourselves up to the gills and still be going to the J. You know, we could go to really fancy things at the J, or we could go to in our bathing suits.
And my second year in Asheville, for the summer, I got a job at the Jewish Community Center. And, I got a call from, I think it was Mildred Michaelov, who lived in Hendersonville, and came in for an interview, and they asked me what kind of program I was talking about. I said, well, of course a camp needs to have swimming. You don't have a pool. Do you have one in mind? And they said, no, we have to look into that. So there was a commercial pool out in a subdivision in South Asheville known as the Royal Pines. So I went out there to talk to them. We made a deal. Then I had to rent a bus from Emma Bus Company. We made a deal. And I think we opened somewhere around 15 or 30, somewhere in that neighborhood, of campers.
In about 57 or 1958, Julius Levitch donated the money for the swimming pool there in his brother Leonard Levitch's name. And I remember because there was a little plaque there as you walked into the area of the swimming pool that said in memory of Leonard Levitch.
After the pool was built, that was a great socialization spot for us. That pool was a big deal when it was built because people didn't have private pools at their homes, and the clubs wouldn't allow us to be members. So we loved having that JCC pool.
The reason I mentioned the pool was because when we first came down here, part of my membership, which paid for my membership, was I helped to clean and get the pool ready every summer and close it down in the fall. That paid for my membership. And our social life evolved around the community center.
Julius Levitch originally built that pool, had that pool built at the Jewish Community Center, and I'm sure you've heard that before, that Julius was instrumental in that. Somehow or other, I was appointed and accepted the responsibility of managing the Jewish Community Center pool for 2 or 3 years. And as I recall, Mark Rudow was a young man at the time before he became an attorney, and Mark was a lifeguard over there. So Mark and I had a good relationship, and we worked together in managing the Jewish Community Center pool for 2 or 3 years.
It was a little crumbly. It was, you had to kind of jumpstart the mechanical systems. They were kind of breaking down, but I learned how to test the water and put chemicals in and start it up and clean it out, you know, all the mechanical stuff. So it was a lifeguarding job, a mechanical pool cleaning job, but it was a great way to meet the community here, because I met, at that point, it was a great pool. It was a neighborhood pool, so I met Jewish, non-Jewish people. A lot of people I'm still in touch with them or their kids today, and that was my initiation into the Jewish community, really. It was working at the J.
But actually it was in an intersection for our kids, because a lot of their Gentile friends wanted to come to the JCC. Their parents might belong to the country club, or they might have belonged to the Grove Park swimming pool, but it kind of became cool to hang out and be involved at the JCC in the summer. So it was a real nice kind of natural social environment for our family.
In about 61, I had a nursery for about a year there called Seven Dwarf Nursery.
At the JCC?
At the JCC, and we had the kids upstairs. I had about 8 kids.
Eric Wellish, my father, started the JCC preschool in 1964. He hired Hilda Hoffman. He was the director / president of the JCC at the time, and there was 8 or 9 kids in the first class.
But the first year they wanted to put together a preschool run by Hilda Hoffman, whom we didn't know at the time. They were looking for 8 children, and because I was very involved in the JCC, I allowed my 3-year-old to go. I wasn't ready to send a 3-year-old to school, but they needed 8 children and they were begging, and so I sent my son, and it was the best thing I ever did. I met a miracle of a woman, and she was Hilda's house.
Nope, did not do a lot of the, I guess, traditional routes, but were there, grew up in the neighborhood, were there swimming every summer. Remember fondly Hilda, and every year as a child getting tadpoles, taking them to her, and as a child watching them turn into frogs, and continued the same tradition with my kids when they went to the JCC.
And said they were creating an additional class for 4-year-olds at the JCC. Hilda Hoffman taught the 3-year-olds, and they wanted to have another class, and he offered me a position there.
We tried to send him to Mrs. Hoffman's preschool at the JCC. Michael had a lot of spirit, and so after a day or two of the 3-year-old program, Mrs. Hoffman said she couldn't handle Michael. And Michael was kicked out. Well, he went on to Andover and Duke and law school, and he's been quite successful in his life, and I think Mrs. Hoffman would really like him now.
I had just met Jeff Brown. He had just moved here also. So the Jewish Community Center was without a director. I was still cleaning, and they were thinking of shutting the doors. So Jeff Brown and I got together. We made a proposal to the board that we would take over the position jointly, and we were hired at that time to do that.
It was the right time to restart what Hilda had done in previous years related to JCC, and we revived even that part with reintroducing an incredible preschool program called the Shalom Children's Center under Ann Craig's amazing leadership and pedagogic capacity, with Tracy and her in her court really being her number 2. It was just an amazing program that I think began at the time in the early 80s to transform certainly the Jewish Community Center, putting it back on the early childhood map where it had been for a number of years. Ann revived it, and Paul and I were the capable and happy facilitators of helping to make that a reality.
No, they did. Hilda Hoffman, may she rest in peace, was a very well-known figure in the Jewish community who had run a preschool for many years at the old JCC building. And then I guess she retired, and they didn't have a program for many years. And the JCC was trying to build up its program offerings. At that time, it wasn't as vibrant as it is today, and they thought that one of the ways that they could start building up their programming was to have a preschool. And I had heard the JCC was looking to start a preschool, and since it was right down the street from me, I contacted them and asked if they were still looking for someone, and in fact they were. And so I went and interviewed, and Jeff Brown hired me to establish an early learning center for kids.
Some of my friends laughed at me and said, it doesn't matter where your kid goes to, preschool, they're going to be fine, which of course they would be. But a friend of mine said, it's not really about where he goes to preschool. It's when you move back to Asheville, what community do you want to be a part of? And you need to get in that community to meet the other parents and to build your community in Asheville. So I feel very fortunate that we did, that he was able to attend the JCC, and that has formed the basis for my community since I moved back to Asheville.
The J is, that's the great thing, is that from the time they're babies, they could do something at the J, and there's all this peer mentoring that goes on, and they build relationships with adults, and there's a lot of evidence, developmental assets that talk about the importance of 3 people other than your immediate family, what happens to a young person when they have somebody else interested in them. And I know the J has always been that for our sons, and we've always wanted to be that for the young people that are there for other folks' families, that it's about building the next generation. It's Lador Vador.
It was an amazing experience. I mean, we have Jordan's is blind, and so we didn't know what to expect. It was the first time we were entering her into any sort of formal, daycare education, so on and so forth, and it was scary for all of us. But the amazing thing was how welcoming and warm and open the JCC was to us and to Jordan. And had no fear whatsoever in bringing her in and figuring it out as we went along, because it was all a learning process for all of us.
What can you say? The children are from 2 months to 40 years. I consider the 40-year-olds my children as prolifically as I do the 5-year-olds. This is our community, our family.
My biggest involvement was the decade of the 90s. I headed up the youth group for a decade. I felt it was very important, and I guess this is because that's where my kids were involved, that the JCC be the place where all the kids, particularly those tween age and teenagers, from Beth Hatafila, from Beth Israel, and any kids that were not affiliated, and there were a lot of kids that were not affiliated, they were just out there. The JCC was the one place that was neutral ground, and any Jewish kid or marginally Jewish kid or kid who could identify in any way could feel safe and connected and welcomed at the JCC.
During the women's Passover Seders, for quite a few years, they asked me to lead some Israeli folk dancing as part of it. And it was just a really sweet time to have all these very enthusiastic women creating a Seder, and then the entire group would get up and we would dance all around the room. I don't know how many people, but it was 100, 150, I'm taking a guess. And that was a nice feeling to just have so many women dancing.
I think my sense of self as a Jewish woman, my pride in who I am, generated quite a bit from the JCC, because from a very young age this was a safe, happy place to be Jewish in a city that was not always easy to be a young Jewish girl.
I've been here my whole adult life. It's my family. I might get choked up. To watch children grow up here, and I've been here long enough now that I've seen children in preschool come back to be camp counselors, get married, have children of their own, their children come back here. It's just an incredible sense of Lenore Vador. And I don't have a large family myself, and the JCC and all the families that have come through here, it's been my home and it's been my family.
Oh, I mean, my connection with the JCC has impacted my life more than I can ever say. I mean, it's helped shape my life. I've met my husband there, Mark Harris, and we met each other when I was 21 and he was 19, and he became the pool manager, so he became my boss. But we were lifeguards there for a long time, and I met Mark Rudow, who gave me my first job at a law firm. I met Bob Deutsch, who's been very supportive of my career over the years. I met community members who made up the fabric of my community and supported me in all of my endeavors. And then, of course, my children go to the JCC. They're there today, all three of them. And pretty much anything the JCC has to offer for kids, they participate in. And of course, the pool in the summer.
But I think that there's nothing I could ever imagine doing my whole life more personally meaningful than working at our JCC. And this is a good movie because somebody's crying now, and that's always the sign. What else I would want to say about that is that I knew it was a job that I wanted because it would be interesting and challenging and meaningful for all of the great work that we do there. The honor of getting to care for so many families and to nurture and build our community, but also because every single thing that's happening at the JCC is something that I want my family to participate in. I want to raise up Jewish kids with strong Jewish identity and a strong Jewish network and friends and know what it is to be part of a community. And so everything I did for work was bringing about that reality for my children and all of our children, and that's an incredible honor. And it's fun.
Yeah. So I've made a lot of friends from the JCC, whether it's with camp or whether it's with BBYO. I was also part of Gesture when I was younger. So basically, all the friends that I developed when I was younger, I'm still with them. We hang out all the time. We do all our stuff together. So the JCC has been a big role in my friendship.
When we finally decided to build a nice center and to tear down the old one and really put up something nice, this sort of became our public face to the rest of the community. And now, because of the fact that only about half of the kids in the preschool or the after school are Jewish, you have a lot of non-Jewish people going there, and so you have actual day-to-day interaction with the non-Jewish community. So it's kind of the face of the community to a lot of those people. And I think that by having a nice building, it makes us look like we have a very strong community, which I think is very important.
We had a community meeting to talk about fundraising, and people were going to stand up and make pledges, and we had a blackboard up there, and people would stand up and say, I'll pledge $100,000, I'll pledge $50,000. And a lot of these people coming knew what they were going to pledge, and we kind of knew what we were going to get beforehand, but basically they raised $500,000, additional $500,000 that day by people standing up and verbally giving their pledge amounts. Now, we don't do that. I mean, that's old school Jewish fundraising where people get in a room and people stand up and make pledges. But they raised enough money to get the project going and underway.
JCC has always done a really great job of being involved in the community, being open to those who are not Jewish. Their role, it seems to me, is to get people to understand what Judaism is, because a lot of people without the JCC would have no idea anything about what Judaism was, what people celebrated, how it was different, how it was the same. It's really education for the community on what Judaism is.
So when we have opened up the JCC to the community for a variety of different lectures and opportunities for people to learn about Jewish culture, it has served a tremendous function to give people a sense that we are a presence, we Jewish folks are a presence of significance in the Asheville area, and that we fill in an important need within this community to have diversity. And so I would say that, again, among the functions, Debbie Miles's work that she did with the Center for Diversity Education, that organization, which worked through the JCC around it, it's kind of interwoven within it in those days, was carrying out those kinds of functions that made the JCC a center of diversity education in Asheville, and a very significant one.
But when Jewish people would come into town and they wanted to find out where Jewish people lived, what they did, where they went, what facilities are available. To me, the Jewish Community Center was in effect like the Jewish Chamber of Commerce for Asheville. And it actually served as the Chamber of Commerce because you could find out everything you wanted to know about Asheville by coming to the J.
Choosing to affiliate with the JCC is a vote in support of the Jewish community as a whole. And I know that our JCC, serves that need or fulfills that function, and it's critical. The JCC has to be. Our Jewish community would suffer like an irreparable loss if we didn't have the Jewish Community Center. So
the outreach functions of, for example, the mitzvah corps of the JCC, which are older adults who have been recruited and trained and matched up for assignments in the community, that is very important for non-Jews, who are the vast majority, to see here are people, as in their churches, who are going out into the community to serve other people, not just Jews. And I think that's important.
So that's been very helpful. The JCC usually is the first place people stop when they come to town for the first time, and a lot of times they're looking for something to get involved with, and that's a great function that the JCC performs in helping people find a niche for themselves. And sometimes that niche is coming to Jewish Family Services and volunteer for our programs.
I immediately went to the director at the time, Heather, and I said, what we need are programs for adults, because it was oriented towards children. Preschool was great, and all the different programs for children and young adults were great, but there was nothing for active seniors. And at the time, Heather said, well, it's not oriented that way, and that was it. But I got Jeremiah Matisse to help me, and we basically started the adult group. We did some hikes and things like that. And I think that's when Heather realized that it was a good group to cater towards. And for 1 year, she had someone who managed it and helped coordinate it. But it's pretty much run by the members. And I'm on the committee that plans adventures.
The Young Adult Jews of Asheville is an important group because we're capturing all of the unaffiliated young adult Jews, regardless of their religious background. Maybe they went to synagogue in the past, maybe they never have and they had a Jewish parent. And we make them feel comfortable and be able to express their Judaism under their terms. And in addition, once they have manifested a Judaism that they feel comfortable with, then they are therefore able to become the future of our Asheville Jewish community.
Said you reach people this way that maybe have been disaffected for one reason or another, or who simply aren't affiliated and wouldn't be reached in another way. I think that's really important because it brings them into the Jewish community, lets them know they have a home in the Jewish community, and provides at least one really welcoming space for them.
what I see is that today is the foundation for the future, right? So what we're doing today is really setting the stage for what happens years down the road. And so I see, just as in the leadership of Jewish Asheville, I see that I have a responsibility today, while not being able to say exactly what the future is going to hold. I think that we have a responsibility to lay the foundation so that there's something solid here for the future of Asheville.
We hear time and time again from teachers at elementary schools that the kids that are most prepared for kindergarten are the ones that go through our program and graduate from our programs. And so we know that we're really providing an amazing basis, a basic starting platform for children that then go on to school and college. And we know that that's starting at the J. And someone, I forget who, but someone told me about a story about how they went to their grandparents' house over a winter break or something. This is like a 4-year-old at the time. And the 4-year-old said the motzi in front of the grandparents. And the grandparents were like, what is the kid saying? And it was just this great story. And then the kid very, matter of fact, was like, it's a blessing, thanking God for the bread and the food that we're about to eat. And knew, not only did they know the prayer in Hebrew, but knew what it meant. And who doesn't want to be thankful for the food that we have?
I think that the JCC, with its children's programs, starting at Hills' House, Shalom Children's Center, after school, camp, throughout the years with its teen programs, really does a lot to expose children and adolescents to great values. Some of those values are with regards to how we treat the earth, with Tikkun Olam, with how we treat one another, Gemilut Chasadim. And I think that the hope is that when people embrace those values and learn how those values feel and learn how to use those values when they encounter other people, it can be felt anywhere, and they take that with them wherever they go.
Mention it not only affirms Jewish children for who they are, but it takes non-Jewish children out into the community, into the world, and understanding what Judaism is about and acceptance of all people, no matter where they're from.
It's just important for people in the community to know about this place because it's a wonderful place for their children to be in and to grow and to, we're talking about Jewish values, but these are not only Jewish values, they are values of life. These are values for the future. These are values for you being a person, a good person. So you can call it Jewish values or just values, but we are teaching them good values to be better people in the future.
Gosh, I love to come to work every day. It's very therapeutic for me. These babies love you unconditionally as I love them unconditionally. And they bring me joy every day.
And the most important reason is connection and the opportunity for Jewish people who are thinking about moving here, relocating, who have lived here, to feel connected in some way, shape, or form. If you want to be connected in Jewish Asheville in any way, shape, or form, there's a place for you at the JCC. And if you feel that you want to go out past the JCC and into other avenues of Jewish Asheville, that's our job, to be able to connect you to those two.
We're celebrating its 75th year, and I think it certainly has a strong future. What's beautiful about the JCC is certainly it involves the Jewish community in it, but it also involves the general community in it, and the JCC is certainly looked at in a very positive way in the community.
Well, I see the future, it's both, again, a benefit and a burden. We are so
successfully assimilated in Asheville, that the Jewish community's time, treasure, and talent bleeds over into so many activities that are not necessarily confined to the Jewish community, and so we're somewhat diluted in our impact. But the JCC, by the same token, has been strengthened by the influx of young families, retirees, and folks that have come to Asheville that have renewed and reinvigorated the JCC. And the building, which we thought would last for the ages when we built it in the 90s, is now becoming as worn as it's a highly utilized facility.
When I think about the future, I actually kind of pause and look to the past and think about the people that were involved in creating what is our newest building, I guess, that was but 20 years ago, and the conversations that they must have had about the need to expand and the need to improve what we're doing, because we're having those same conversations right now. And to think about what they did and know that I have been a recipient of their efforts is exciting and powerful and meaningful, because I feel like I'm looking to the future and knowing that I'm going to have that same impact. And maybe it'll be 75 years from now that somebody will be having this conversation. Maybe it'll be 20, but it's exciting to be part of this and to know that it's more than any single individual. It truly takes a community to build for the future and something meaningful for generations to come. And I'm grateful that the people who did this 20 years ago did this, because my family certainly has benefited from it. And so I hope that I can return that in some capacity for the next generations to come.
Well, we are at such an exciting time in the history of our JCC right now, with some real opportunities to once again expand our physical plant, and with that, our ability to reach and touch and care for the community. Every generation has had to ask itself the question, can we have a JCC? What can that be? And can we support it? You saw that in 1940 when a brave group said, we're going to buy this house and we're going to have a JCC. You saw it in the 80s when another group said, we have got to build ourselves a real building, not just a house, and they did it. And now we're asking ourselves that question again. We are bursting at the seams, and in our current space, there's opportunity to have more, and I hope that we seize the opportunity.
We've all got a life to live. We've all got a gift to give. Just open up your heart and let it out. We've all got a piece to bring. We've all got a song to sing. Just open up your heart and let it out. Yeah, when I reach out to you and you to me, we become that Tselem Elohim. When we share our hopes and our dreams, each one of us B'Tselem Elohim. We've all got a tale to tell. We all want to speak it well. Just open up your heart